I'm not ashamed of you," my father said, raising his glass at Thanksgiving. "One son is a lawyer. The other? Well, somebody has to mow the lawns." 14 guests laughed. My 8-year-old son looked at me and whispered, "Daddy, what's funny?" That was the last time I let him speak for me. My name is Eric. I'm 31. I'm a single dad, and this is the story of how I bought the roof over my father's head. Before I go on, please like and subscribe if this story connects with you. Drop your location in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. 6 years ago, I pulled into my parents' driveway in Millbrook, Virginia, with nothing but 2 suitcases and a 2-year-old asleep in the back seat. My ex-wife had cleared out our bank account on a Tuesday and filed from her mother's address on Thursday. By Friday, I was standing on my parents' porch with my son on my hip and whatever dignity I had left. My father opened the door, looked at the suitcases, looked at me, looked at the toddler passed out against my shoulder. "Cottage out back," he said. "Temporary. Don't get comfortable. No hug, no you okay, no we're glad you're safe, just terms, always terms with him." The cottage was 300 square feet, 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, a shower that ran cold after 4 minutes, but it sat on my parents' land, and at the time, I didn't think that mattered. I was just grateful to have somewhere to lay my head. Within a week, I was knocking on doors, mowing lawns for cash, $20 here, $30 there. A neighbor down the road watched my son while I worked, a retired school teacher named Mrs. Ellison, who charged me $5 an hour and refused to take more. I didn't mind the work. There's something honest about mowing a lawn. You start with chaos and end with order. You can see what you accomplished by the end of the day. I'd push that mower and think about nothing except the next row, the next property, the next $20. By the end of year 1, I had a used truck, a commercial mower, and 3 employees. By year 2, I had 12 employees and contracts with 5 vacation estates in the Shenandoah Valley. By year 3, I'd filed an LLC, built a website at 2 a.m. while my son slept, and named it Blue Ridge Property Management. We weren't just mowing lawns anymore. We were handling full estates, maintenance, landscaping, guest turnover, you name it. My parents never asked about it, not once. To them, I was still the one who mowed lawns. My older brother, Mark, he was the golden child. Growing up, Mark got SAT tutoring, AP summer camps, college visits to UVA and Duke. When he got into law school, my father took out a second mortgage to cover his tuition, every penny, no questions asked. When it was my turn, I sat across from my father at the kitchen table and asked about community college. He didn't even look up from his paper. Community college is plenty for someone like you. Someone like you. I still hear those words when I close my eyes. I went to Blue Ridge Community College anyway, paid for it myself, lawn money, money I scraped together from odd jobs. I graduated in 2 years with honors. Nobody came to the ceremony. My father had a Rotary meeting. My mother had a headache. Every holiday, same script. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. My father would stand at the head of the table, raise his glass, and announce, "To Mark, our lawyer, the one who made something of himself." Applause, smiles, Mark nodding like he'd earned it. Then my father would turn to me, a pause, a grin, and Eric helps around the house. Laughter, every single time. My mother never once corrected him. When I brought it up, she'd press her fingers to her temples and sigh. "Your father just wants what's best for both of you. Don't be so sensitive, Eric." Here's what nobody at those holiday tables knew. Mark's law degree cost $300,000. My father covered half. Mark was still carrying $150,000 in federal loans, while everyone called him the successful one. His marriage was falling apart, his firm was working him into the ground, but at the O'Neill table, image was everything, and my image had already been decided for me. The cracks started showing in my son first. Liam was 7 when his teacher called me in, Mrs. Patterson, 20 years in 2nd grade. "Liam's been quiet at lunch," she said. "The other kids asked what his dad does for work. He didn't answer. He just shrugged." I sat in that tiny plastic chair and felt something inside me splinter. That night, I tucked Liam in and he asked, "Daddy, do you like your job?" "I love my job, buddy." "Then why does Grandpa always say it funny?" I kissed his forehead and turned off the light. Then I went to the kitchen and stared at the wall for an hour. This wasn't about me anymore. My father's jokes, his little performances, they were seeping into my son's bones. He was 7 years old, already learning that his dad wasn't worth being proud of. That same week, an opportunity landed in my inbox. A new luxury development in the valley, 12 vacation homes, full-service management contract. The owner was looking for a single firm to handle everything. Annual value, $340,000, enough to double my revenue, enough to hire a full team, enough to leave the cottage for good. I called the only family member who'd ever believed in me, my Aunt Gloria, my father's sister. They hadn't spoken in 10 years, not since her divorce. In Millbrook, that was enough to become a scandal. But Gloria had always been different. She owned an antique shop on Birch Street, lived alone, and didn't care what anyone thought. "Fear is a landlord too, Eric," she said, when I told her about the opportunity. That night, I picked up the phone and pitched the developer, Frank Calloway, Calloway Development. 3 days later, we met at his office. I wore the only blazer I owned. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and said, "You're the real deal, Eric. Let's do this." I signed a 2-year contract for 3 properties, the initial phase. Just like that, Blue Ridge went from a local operation to a company with real infrastructure. I hired 4 new people that month. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I was in the kitchen helping my mother sort through her guest list when my father walked in, chest puffed, holding his phone like a trophy. "Guess who's coming to Thanksgiving?" My mother looked up. "Who?" "Frank Calloway." He said the name like he was announcing royalty. Frank Calloway, owner of Calloway Development Group, the biggest residential developer in the valley. My father had been circling him for months, trying to finalize the sale of his land. "This is my shot," my father continued. "Calloway at our table. Good food, good wine, good impressions. By New Year's, the deal is done." I stood at the counter holding a serving spoon and felt my blood turn cold. Frank Calloway, the man I had a standing video call with every Tuesday at 9 a.m. The man whose properties I managed for 2 years. The man who called me the most reliable operator in the region. My father had never once asked the name of my company. He'd never visited my office. He'd never Googled me. And Frank had no reason to know my last name, or that the man who ran Blue Ridge Property Management went home at night to a 300-square-foot cottage behind my father's house. 2 separate worlds about to collide at the same dinner table. Thanksgiving morning smelled of cinnamon and rosemary. I woke up early, dressed Liam in his nice shirt, the navy one with the little reindeer on the pocket. He twirled in front of the mirror. "Daddy, do I look good?" I said, "You look perfect." "Will Grandpa be nice today?" I kneeled down, brushed a strand of hair behind his ear. "I don't know, buddy, but I'll be right next to you the whole time." By 9 a.m., I was in my parents' kitchen, apron on, hands in the turkey, same as every year. My mother assigned the cooking to me because Mark's wife needs help with the kids, as if roasting a 20-pound bird wasn't work worth getting ready for. Mark arrived at noon, pressed shirt, tired eyes. His wife followed, silent. The kids ran past without saying hello. The guests trickled in. Aunt Carl and Uncle Jim, the Warrens from 2 doors down, Pastor David and his wife, 2 couples from the Rotary Club. And then, at 12:30, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Frank Calloway and his wife. My father practically sprinted to the front door. Handshake, shoulder pat. "Frank, welcome, welcome. So glad you could make it." Frank walked in, polite, composed. He scanned the room. Then he saw me standing in the kitchen doorway, apron on, hair pulled back, sweat at my temples from 3 hours of cooking. My mother swooped in. "Oh, that's Eric, our younger son. He helps around the house." Frank nodded politely. A flicker of something crossed his face. Recognition, maybe, but it passed. He moved on to the living room. Dinner started at 2 p.m. 14 people around a table set with my mother's best china,
candles lit, napkins folded, everything arranged to look like a family that had it all figured out. My father stood at the head of the table, tapped his glass with a fork. "I want to give thanks," he said, voice warm with that Sunday sermon tone he put on for company. "For this family, for this home, and especially for my son Mark, Dr. Mark O'Neill, who makes us all so proud." Applause, warm, automatic, like clapping at church. Mark smiled, tight, practiced. Beside him, his wife stared at her plate. My father wasn't done. "And of course, Eric." He paused, let the beat land, grinned. "One son is a lawyer, the other, well, somebody has to mow the lawns." Laughter, every single time. A few people laughed with him, nervous, reflexive laughter that fills space when nobody knows what to do next. Most of the table went quiet.
Pastor David looked down at his napkin. Frank Calloway's wife shifted in her seat. Frank, sitting 3 chairs to my right, didn't laugh. He looked at my father. Then he looked at me. Under the table, Liam's hand found mine. His small fingers were cold. I squeezed them. Didn't speak. Didn't react. Not yet. After the main course, after the turkey was carved and the sides were passed and everyone had seconds, my mother stood up, held her glass like a woman about to receive an award. "I just want to add my own little toast to Mark, the light of our family. We are so, so blessed." She didn't look at me, didn't mention Liam, didn't say my name. The table murmured approval, more clinking, more smiles aimed at Mark, who by now looked like he wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. And then, in the silence after the glasses were set down, came a small voice. "Daddy?" Liam, sitting right next to me, eyes wide, wet, confused. "Daddy, why does Grandpa say you just mow lawns?" The table froze. "Is mowing lawns bad?" 8 years old, asking in front of 14 adults whether his father's work made him less. My mother recovered first. "Liam, honey, Grandpa was just being funny." Liam looked at her, then back at me. "But you run a company, you told me, with trucks and everything." Silence, the kind that has weight. I looked at my son, this small, brave, honest person who had just said out loud what no adult at this table had the courage to say. I looked at Frank Calloway, watching now with something I couldn't quite read. I looked at my father, still standing at the head of the table, glass in hand, smile fading. And something inside me, something that had been bent and stretched and stepped on for 6 years, for 20 years, for my whole life, finally, quietly, broke free. I set my napkin on the table, pushed my chair back, stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood, every head turned. I looked at my son first, then I spoke. "Liam, mowing lawns is not bad. Any honest work is good work." My voice was level, calm, the way I talk to clients, not the way I used to talk to my father. "But since Grandpa brought it up, let me tell you what Daddy actually does." My father's smile vanished. "Eric, sit down. This isn't the time." "You made it the time, Dad." I didn't raise my voice, didn't need to. "You stood up in front of 14 people and defined me. Now I get to define myself." The room was airless. My mother's hand went to her throat. Mark's eyes went wide. "I started mowing lawns," I said, looking at Liam but speaking to every person at that table. "That's true. I'm not ashamed of it. But I didn't stop there." I let one beat of silence pass. "I built a company. It's called Blue Ridge Property Management. I manage 20 luxury estates across the Shenandoah Valley. I have 16 full-time employees, and last year my revenue was $2.3 million. Nothing. No sound, no movement. Just 14 people recalculating everything they thought they knew about me. My father's face, I'll never forget it. The color drained from his cheeks like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. My mother,
Eric, why are you making a scene? I'm not making a scene, Mom. I'm finishing Dad's toast. Then, from the far end of the table, a glass being set down slowly, deliberately. Frank Calloway was staring at me, not with surprise, with recognition. "Wait," he said. Frank stood, not fast, not dramatic, the way a man stands when something important needs to be said. "Eric O'Neill, you own Blue Ridge Property Management?" Every eye in the room moved between us. "Yes, Mr. Calloway." Frank turned to my father. His expression had shifted, polite confusion giving way to something harder. "Richard, you didn't tell me your son runs Blue Ridge." My father's mouth moved. Nothing came out. "Last week you told me your younger son was between jobs." The room inhaled. "Between jobs," Uncle Jim repeated it under his breath. Aunt Carol covered her mouth. Pastor David closed his eyes. Frank shook his head. "You invited me into your home and introduced your son as the lawn boy. The whole time, he's the person I trust with a portfolio worth millions." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Liam tugged my hand. I looked down. "Daddy, is that the man from your Tuesday calls?" I almost laughed. "Yes, buddy, that's him." Frank stood up straight, buttoned his jacket. "Richard, I'm going to need to pause our discussions about the land." His voice was cordial, professional, final. "I don't do business this way." My father tried. "Frank, let's discuss this." "We've discussed enough." Frank turned to me, a slight nod. "Eric, I'll call you Monday. We have work to do." He and his wife walked out without looking back. Within 10 minutes, the table was empty. I moved out 2 weeks later, bought a townhouse on Maple Street. Liam has his own room now, blue walls just like he wanted. My company kept growing. Frank referred me to 3 other developers. Revenue hit $4 million this year. I hired 6 more people. Mark calls sometimes. We're not close, but we're talking. Real conversations, not the performances we grew up with. My father sent a card in March, handwritten, 6 words. "Eric, I read the article. Dad." No apology, no explanation, just 6 words. I left it on the kitchen counter, didn't throw it away, didn't frame it, just left it there like a door cracked open. Maybe one day he'll walk through it. Maybe he won't. But my peace doesn't depend on his timing anymore. Liam asked me yesterday, "Daddy, are we going to Grandma's for Thanksgiving?" I knelt down, looked at him. "No, buddy, we're staying home this year." He smiled. "Can we have pizza?" "Absolutely." Sometimes the best thing you can build isn't a business, it's a door and the courage to walk through it. My name is Eric. I'm 31, and I don't mow lawns anymore. I own the whole damn field.